Hey guys, it's Lana.
And Jonah,
And
and welcome to Seeing Other People.
okay.
Yep,
Getting right in. Shit.
I never hit it on time, and it never because there's always a little bit of a lag. So I'm just like, this
Well,
time
I
around,
also
I
feel
wanted
like
to say it.
sometimes I either try and make it not fit, you know? Like I'm always holding for an extra half a second before I say it because I'm not sure.
Right? Okay, I see what you're saying. Because perhaps by delaying it intentionally, it actually does sync up perfectly.
Yeah, but then I guess it doesn't and I shouldn't have done that and I should just talk like a normal human.
That would help.
Maybe.
Anyway,
I don't know how to be a normal human.
that's the beautiful thing about humanity is that I don't think anyone does. What does it mean to be normal?
Normal is just a setting on a washing machine, as I've said before, from my health teacher in high school. That was on the curtains.
All right, everybody, welcome into the episode. We are here with the lovely Jenna Langbaum, her new book, Me in Search of You. I'm doing my Jimmy Fallon thing where he introduces like the band. We are very is it I kept reading it as we pooped.
No.
It's not we pooped, it's we popped. We texted, we swirled. It's an unreal book. Jenna, thanks for coming to see other people and hanging
I
out with
am
us.
so excited to be here, extremely honored, and I am so excited to meet you guys and chat with you.
We are thrilled to have you here. So, Jenna, do you want to give us a little bit of background about you and what led you to write this book and what that process was like and how you decided to take your dating experiences and turn them into beautiful short stories that all fit together?
Sure, I would love to. I'm Jenna. I am a director of creative and strategy for a PR agency, but I've also always sort of had these creative projects on the side. So when I first graduated from college, I wrote a play and I produced it through the Fringe Festival right out of college. So produced, acted, directed, all of that. And that was sort of like a big light bulb moment for me. That was like, okay, we're going to have the corporate job, but we're also going to pursue like our dreams and we're going to make this happen. So after that, I did a bunch of different projects, and also at the same time started going on a lot of dates, a lot of dating app dates, and kind of through those experiences started having conversations with people. I've always been a very love and relationships forward person, and so just started like talking a lot with my friends who were also going through it, and I just felt like we all sort of had the same sentiments and went through really similar situations. And so I said to myself, I'm going to write a book of full length essays all about my dating experiences. And at that point, I had been dating in the city for probably 3 years. And so I started writing these full length essays. And then as I was reviewing them, I realized they were super self indulgent and very long. And I was always gravitating towards 3 or 4 sentences within the essay, like the funniest, the most depressing, the most interesting. And then I thought, you know what? I'm just going to do a book of super short stories that kind of reflect the chaotic, frenetic energy of what it's like to date in your early 20s. And I thought it was just like a very approachable style, especially for the audience that I'm reaching. And I think it helps to showcase some of the repetition that we all experience. And yeah, I wanted it to be super digestible and very universal.
Jenna, I love what you said about having 3 years of dating experience because, in a way, that's 3 years of full on research about the dating world, which kind of fuels everything that you wrote. And one thing I was thinking of when you mentioned that you ended up writing these essays, but picked out a few lines that you kept paying attention to is every time I end up texting my friends after my dates, I write literal essays. And then I look back and I'm like, wow, I really could have summed that up in 3 or 4 of these sentences. Is that kind of what it was like for you?
Yes, exactly. And I think in your own memory too, you always remember like 1 or 2 pieces of dialogue that the person said and like one feeling that resonated with you. But in reality, yes, you're texting your whole saga to the whole group chat, getting it all out. And so yeah, when I was putting it together, I was like, let's focus on what the true meat is in all of this. because it's very easy to kind of go through like, okay, first date, this happened, second date, this happened, third date, he ghosted me. Then it's like the next essay was almost the same story. And it's just like, what are we actually trying to say with all of this?
Shout out to our sponsor, Mindset Wellness CBD. I am absolutely, absolutely obsessed with Mindset Wellness CBD's gummy products. They taste incredible. They make me feel exactly the way I want to feel. I'm now officially hooked on the Focus gummies. They definitely help me like zone into what I'm doing, but also like have the creative juices flowing. It's been really great as I have been working pretty hard on a ton of exciting projects that I'm really excited to share with all of you. So definitely recommend trying them. Of course, we hooked you up with a discount code. So if you go to mindsetwellnesscbd.com and type in code seeing other people at checkout, you get 10% off and free shipping. So do yourself a favor, get them. Do your friends a favor, get some for them. There's also a little gummy sampler pack. They're gluten-free, vegan, non-GMO, organic, and they taste fucking amazing. Back to the episode.
When you were like putting this thing together, what was your writing process? And you can be as like specific as you want. Like, you were like, okay, let me remember every day, or did you keep a diary, or did you scroll through your phone texts? And did
Yeah.
you write in Word? Did you like what was the process to actually write this book?
Totally. So I love talking about this. So I am someone who I don't keep a diary, but I do keep a very, let's say, lively note section in my phone. So if I have like a little subway ride or a cab ride, coming back from the date, I would record, how I was feeling, what it was like, etc. Just for myself, honestly, I think to process maybe. And really not even with the intention of ever writing a book, I don't think. And then in terms of like how I started putting it together, I use only Google Docs. So I started creating and kind of compiling all of the different scraps of notes that I had. And some of this writing goes back to my senior year of college, which I'm 28. So that was quite a number of years ago. So it was digging around, hunting for the right writing. And then the hardest part for me was creating like a narrative arc and not just saying, okay, bad date, good date, lonely, happy. There had to be some sort of flow to the whole thing. And so with that in mind, I did create sort of a storyline overall, which I feel isn't, super happy or super sad. It's just at least there is some sort of like a narrative arc. And that was probably the most difficult part to piece together.
I like that as you say, Notes app, it actually makes complete sense because they kind of read like Notes apps, like notes to ourselves, and so I
Yeah.
think that that's a super special and modern way to go about it. And yeah, I like the specificness of it. I also like really like that. I mean, everything has like a location, which really helps visually as a reader. It's like we were in Washington Square Park, we were in Brooklyn, we were in Soho. Um, I think it's funny because I'm trying to figure out who you are as a you clearly have a type, like whether you're going to admit it or not in the writing. Like I think you like filmmaker artsy dudes who like wear like Converse. Is that correct? Is that like the number one thing? Because there were a bunch of filmmakers or
Jonah,
like writers in
I
this thing.
actually think that you're her type. When I was
Well,
reading it, and there
Well,
is a page that spells out what Jenna's type is, and my
yeah.
so
first thought was Jonah.
I think I was very much looking for this elusive person that was, I think, a little bit similar to me, that was almost like mainstreaming a little bit, but also artsy and could kind of get into it with me about like creative stuff. And I definitely, had a phase where I went for the artsier type. It's funny because everyone I've dated seriously was not really artsy in any capacity. And so I think that in terms of like, searching for my type, that definitely was true. And that's a very fair assessment.
That's so
Well,
funny.
I was actually panicked at page 54. I
Oh no.
renewed. I'm just gonna read it because that's one of the beauty things, and maybe I'll give our audience a sort of a sense of. Am I allowed to read it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can read it, right?
Oh,
Because yeah. So
absolutely. Yes.
so I thought that this. I was like, wait a second, have I been on a date with Jenna before? So here's the passage. We were supposed to meet months before we did. Our story, a
Mm.
setup with canceled dates, bad timing, curiosity. Questions, a few late night texts. I entertained a real saga that drew me in instantly. We finally met at a small dark bar in the West Village, your eyes metallic and rolling over me. There was an instant chatter, instant. Wow, I actually don't know this word. My dyslexia fucking hitting me right now. Is fissure?
Fissure?
Is that the word?
Fissure, like a
Wow,
fizzing.
fissure.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Fissure.
got
Guys, I got like a C minus in English. I'm a horrible like reader
it.
writer, although this is
Yoga.
what I do for a living. Um, fissure. To make up sparks is easy, but to feel the guttural connection, it is always jarring and thrilling, like a revival. You worked in film. You wore brown Chelsea boots and had thick, sleepy eyelids. Hook, line, and sinker. I found myself in Brooklyn. You know this. If to the average listener, that's I have those boots. I live in Brooklyn. I work in film, and I would lead someone on for a long time over text and not meet up with them. So like, I was like,
Could have
I
been
relate
you,
to this
Jonah.
guy.
I'm glad
Could
that
have been me.
we were all thinking of the same exact page here, which is I think really funny.
Oh gosh,
Um,
yes, could
so
have been you.
Um, that so by the way, I do love your descriptive. For everyone, this is of course an episode where we get to all talk about dating, but this is ultimately a plug for your book, Me in Search of You, and that's I didn't do it justice because I am dyslexic, don't know how to read, but it is really well descriptive and a fun. You feel smarter just by using these bigger words. I literally sound like a second grader, but like it does make you. It speaks to your ability to write, which is really exciting. Um,
Thank you. So it
and
definitely
yeah,
is. I, it definitely is a combination of poetry, prose, and dialogue, and it's sort of a unique style in that way. So you're not getting like a typical personal essay style. And I just also want to say, like, these aren't all 100% my stories. This is a fictional book. It's just really
hmm,
reflective of my experiences of close friends, of things I've heard, of just sort of the general swirl of dating in your early 20s. But yeah, it is the
hmm.
style itself is a very unique sort of way into this topic, I think.
Yeah, I really, really love how you were able to make it so specific yet so relatable. Like there are such specific details, and yes, many of them do relate to specific places in New York, but anyone from anywhere in the world can read those and kind of see their own place within every like specific spot that you depicted, which is really, really cool and unique.
There's
Thank you.
some
Yeah.
there's some writer that has a quote. There's some writer that has a quote that's like New York is even if you're not from New York, it feels like home. I forget who said that, but there is someone who said that. So I think it does like I think people aspirationally like stuff that has to do with New York because it's so in the zeitgeist. Um, but yeah, what well can I ask a question just
Mhm.
for our education here? Which one of these pieces is your favorite? Like, do you have a favorite section? Like a favorite
That's a great question.
and if
I
yeah.
actually love the one which is so interesting because it's not really about like it's not one of my more funny dates. It's actually the one about falling in love for the first time. I'm trying to find the page. It's all it. I think it's on page 79. It's called I Illuminated. I just like love the writing of that the most. I think that it's some of my favorite writing. And I
Hmm.
also love the series, the three different stories that are We Texted, because those are actually all taken from real texts and patchwork together. And that's sort of some of my favorite things to play with in terms of writing, like different styles and combining sort of different kinds of dialogue and words and memories and stuff like that.
I really love that. So there actually before I get into the three main points I want us to talk about. I have one question that I thought of before. Jonah,
Mhm.
as Jenna's talking about writing down her dates on her way home, and as I mentioned, how like I'll text the group chat an actual essay about my dates. Do you do this? Do the guys that you know do this? What goes on in a guy's phone after a date? Is it just like, yeah, bro, it was cool?
Well, great question, and I'm gonna give you the answer. Jenna, real quick though, off of what you just said, the text message conversations, are those in order or are those you're taking snippets and stanzas and putting them together? I just had a selfish question as a reader. I was wondering, is that what those are? Or are they
Um,
verbatim in order from a text thread?
No, so they are like taken from hundreds of conversations that I've had. So they're all just little fragments pasted
Copy.
together. But if you do see, they evolve from sort of
Got
like
it.
the "Hi, who is this?" to like "Now we're going on dates" sort of texts.
Gotcha. Well, to answer Alana's question, we don't. None of my friends have ever gotten into a cab or walked home and opened their notes app and written down something that made them feel special about the date, or vice versa. Now, of course, some of the creative friends I have, myself included, if someone says something or if something happens, I will open my notes app and I will write down, oh, she went on a 35-minute monologue about her passion or her jealousy of Greta Gerwig as a like fellow graduate of Barnard, and like how Greta Gerwig's like entitled, and like a 35-minute monologue where like she was like talking about how she's like the opposite of a narcissist and how she loves asking questions, yet literally she never asked me one question
Oh
Oh
and
no.
God.
simply just spoke for 35 minutes straight. um I'll write that down. I'll write down things where it's like a really sweet moment. But not to the same extent, although I do think we have a friend, a listener, and a friend of ours who's doing this experiment called, she's going on 31st dates. And I think if you're in some sort of trial of like your romantic life, I do have guy friends who have certainly like written down things in that capacity where it's like they're maybe going on a bunch of dates and they just sort of want to write down names and sort of figure out, like, I hate to say this, and this is again another whole episode. There's the word roster that gets tossed around sometimes where it's like, look, I think men and women, all genders, we all have a roster. We all have like the 5 or 4 people in our rotation. If you're that kind of person that maybe you are going on dates with or sleeping with or thinking about going on a date with. And I would be lying if I didn't say I've written down those names to remind myself that I'm not lonely. So like,
Oh, Jonah.
um, I know, but that's not that's and to answer your question in short, Alana, no, not to the same extent. So, Alana, why don't you take us through what you were? I'm excited to hear sort of the main points that you wanted to discuss.
Okay. So when I was reading through, I
Mhm.
think there were a lot of different pages that really stuck out to me. And I started like writing them down as I was going along. And when I went back after to like prepare for the episode, and there were three key things that jumped out to me. I feel like I'm like doing a presentation for school or something. Like
Spark
here's my
notes.
thesis. Here are the three like I don't even know what they're supporting whatever. Okay. So, and those were like ghosting, modern dating in general, and dating apps. And so I
Mhm.
want to read a few passages that kind of relate to each of them. And so let's start with ghosting, because, apparently I'm the girl who just gets ghosted every day because I make a lot of content about ghosting. So that's where we're going to start. We
Perfect.
Because
motion.
it performs well.
Because it does perform well because everyone gets
I
ghosted.
know.
Okay. So,
We've all been there.
yeah.
Yeah.
So here's the first one that I really loved. We motioned. We mimic the movements of dating: the arm around my arm, the kiss on the cheek, my forehead, the hands on my knee, the fingers at the small of my back. I feel myself hatching into a strange, hairless being, never knowing that a moment of cluttering intimacy may be the last moment I ever see you. It's one of the weirdest things to think about. Like, why are you tucking me in? You're 3 days away from ghosting me. Which, like,
Oh
I
God.
read that and my jaw dropped. Like, that is so true. The number of times that I can think back to where I had like incredible, like romantic or just like really lovely, like special nights with people where I felt comfortable and felt like this could go somewhere. And then
Right.
that was the end of it. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, how?
It's an insane thing if you think about human nature. And I've thought about this so much as I sort of have become like into my later 20s. So that one I believe was based after an experience I had in when I was 22, I think. And I was dating someone for about a month and a half. And I met his family, met his friends, he met my friends, everything was going so well. And literally one day he just blocked me on Instagram, never answered me again, and I didn't understand it. And it was such a wild thing at that age because I went to a super small liberal arts college, Hamilton College, and I
Shout out.
um shout out. And I grew up in a small town, a small suburb of New York City. And I just have always had the experience that if you were dating someone or even seeing them in any capacity, you would then run into them or you would see them or it would never be that they would just go away forever. So I think really coming to terms with the fact that someone could literally just block me out of my life, out of their life, like overnight was just a crazy concept. And it's something that I know you guys talk a lot about on your podcast, but it's something that I really try to avoid in my own dating experience. I am always very clear, like this is not going anywhere, or it is, and things like that.
Oh wow, nice. That's what we
I
are
try
all about here.
to.
Is clear,
Yeah.
yeah, clear communication. Um, yeah, okay. Like I love that. I was gonna say, I wonder, like, especially now, it does help to write about it because then you're like, oh, you're like, and it's like anything. It's like when you reflect, and the same reason having a diary helps is because you're like able to reflect and be like, oh, maybe, maybe I wasn't so clear with this person up front or whatever. So maybe just a fun exercise for some people listening. Like if you're having trouble if you're getting ghosted or ghosting or something's going on, maybe write about the experience. You might have a little bit of a reflection to go. Um, Alana, do you want me to read this one right here? The modern dating.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Do I meandered, and I'll do I replicated.
Okay. I meandered. I'm going to start over. I guess you ever listen to Harry Potter on tape? Because I'm like so used to Jim Dale reading Harry Potter on tape, and I just like went into that for a second. I'm gonna exit that and go back. I meandered. You should really meet my friend, banker, Upper West Side, CrossFit, German Shepherd, 6'3". Is it 6'32" or
Sorry,
6'3"?
I have a typo.
Okay, I'm going back again. We're gonna keep it though because we're raw, we're real. I meandered.
Love it.
You should really meet my friend, banker, Upper West Side, CrossFit, German Shepherd, 6'3". It kills me when credentials are listed like ingredients. If only I could remove CrossFit, add a pinch of artsy, and a dollop of funny, and replace German Shepherd with a Pomeranian.
My perfect
Well,
man.
beautiful. Um, Pomeranian?
I love
Small fluffy
Pomeranians.
dogs for the
It's
I
just
win.
something
know,
I love.
guys. You don't want to get. You don't want a guy with a small dog.
Yeah. I
Why?
guess that would
That
be
sounds
strange if
perfect.
he purchased the Pomeranian without a love interest, but I do love Pomeranians. They're adorable.
They just are so happy. Like you can't look at one
So
and not smile.
happy, so fluffy and happy. I love them.
I support it.
But yes, I love that one because I do feel that in general, as you go through dating in your 20s, everybody feels like they have the perfect person to set you up with. And oftentimes when they read out the credentials, you're like, I don't know why you thought of me and this person because we have nothing in common. It's just like we're both single people in your life. And it's like normally coming from a nice intention, but I have like over the years just gotten to the point where I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
But
the
yeah,
idea that the idea that we treat the idea that we treat personality traits like ingredients, I think, is really, really brilliant and a really good comparison, especially visually. Again, another really visual use of like, oh, it's like you're making a soup or preparing something. And it's like they're 6'2" and they're a banker and they own a Peloton, like all these different things that can like equate to how they ultimately taste.
It's like, oh
Um,
no, I'm gluten free. Sorry, I can only date someone who went to an Ivy League school, which is what people sometimes do look for when they're on dating apps. It's like somebody could be almost perfect, but like you're on a dating app. If you keep swiping, you might get that person who's a little more perfect or who has a little more on your list. So it's just crazy how we've kind of transformed into a society that's just looking for this perfect being, even though there's no such thing.
Completely
yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Jenna, I would
I also
love
feel
if
like,
we could get. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was
Go
gonna say
ahead.
I'd love if we could get a little author reading for the
Mm.
next
Oh,
one, which is I
sure.
replicated on page 66.
Okay. I replicated. There are 4 black tops, 3 pairs of jeans, and 1 casual dress. I do the same wave in my hair, the same dark pink lips, the same black boots. There is such a ritual of costume and performance. My script prepped and read, my jokes timed with precision, the anecdotes I've concocted about my family, my friends, my crazy boss, my fake walls, my high school performance of Sandy and Grease, ready to go. It always goes the same. We saunter on stage, our faces light up, we hug, we smile, we lean, we scan each other for possibility, and then I go home, disrobe, wipe off the paint, and fold myself back into the silence. I can feel my brain mouthing along to the stories like a stage mom.
That one really, I think, struck a chord with me because it's so true. And I think it's like what leads to so many people feeling so burned out from dating because you go to the same places or the same types of places. You end up wearing the same outfit on every first date because like why not? You can because they haven't seen it before. And I know like I as you were saying about like your script prepped, there are so many things that I know that for so long I would talk about on every first date because it was just the first date conversations and it's so hard to like break that and like feel like have a different experience. It's very rare to have a different experience on a first date.
Yes, I completely agree. And I think the more that you date, the more that it becomes clear how you're really saying the same things over and over, and you're feeling the same excitement after the first date and then the same rush after the second one. And I really wanted to get into the outfits because I really feel like we all have a first date outfit. I have a whole ritual of getting ready, and, I do gravitate towards the
Wow.
same banter, I feel. So it was, I thought that was a really interesting thing to tap into. It's just like we really are kind of doing these interviews in a lot of ways and trying to see if our stories will be interesting enough to get to the second date.
Yeah.
Do you have a first date spot that you always go to? Like if you were in the position to pick a place, are you going to the same spot every time?
So I did have a few different spots depending on on different areas. I love the bar Loverboy in Alphabet City. That's one of my favorite spots. It's like the perfect mix of like not fancy enough, like not so fancy, but still like a little divey. I was listening to your guys' podcast this morning, and I love a dive bar for a first date. Even I think it really like loosens up the energy, and you're kind of you know you're just more casual. I love 169 Bar. That's one of my favorite bars. And then if it's an eating date, I always go for like a cheeseburger. That's just my favorite. And I feel like it also kind of sets the vibe of like, this is a casual experience. We're not, at like a steakhouse or something. It's like, let's just be normal about this.
The shade that you got from that guy you took to JG Mellon, I was like, damn, fuck
I
this
I
dude.
thought that
Like
too.
I
the
know. I
JG
love
Mellon's my
JG Melon.
spot, by the way. That's my spot. Yeah,
My
that's my
favorite.
spot. I have a JG Mellon hat in the back there somewhere if you can see it.
Oh, wow. Love that.
Yeah, okay. That's a great dive bar city. I mean, shout out dive bars. I was very surprised when Alexis said that dive bars weren't the spot when, true homies know dive bars where it's at. There's this walls down, it's a vibe. Vibe check 1, 2, 3.
Well, I guess we're dive bar people. Not everyone is a dive bar person.
Alana, everyone is a dive bar person because we say so. Okay. When it's said on this podcast, it's done. It's
I
um
think it has to be a dive bar that has like some element that's kind of cool about it. So like at
Yeah.
yes.
169 bars, there's like the leopard pool tables, and it's like very New Yorky, and it's just that perfect kind of vibe that's like a cooler dive bar. Like you got to know the good spots. I agree. I agree with her in that
That's true. That's fair.
Yeah.
way.
All right.
Okay, you want me to take this last one, Alana?
Go for it.
You want? Okay, cool. My attempt at reading, I get to redeem
And
myself.
now we're going on to the dating app section of the episode.
Love.
Yes. I played. It's hard not to think of dating apps like a game where eventually some outcome happens. If I am ghosted 3 more times, go on a midtown sports bar date 10 more times, stay positive 6 more times, be shocked to find out they have a girlfriend 1 more time, and vouch to remain calm and casual every time, then my prize should arrive at my doorstep. But the fact that there is no formula is what makes it simultaneously devastating and magical. And to think, my grandparents met in middle school and never looked back. To think.
They did.
Yeah.
Shout out to Grandma Barb and Grandpa John. They met when they were
Shout out
13.
Grandpa Barb and
Love
and
that.
John. That's
Yep.
exciting.
Yeah.
It is very much like a numbers. I mean, It is a game, and dating apps were just. I mean, as we learned on the show, the whole swiping system was is an invention of a game. You can get points, you can buy more points. You know, some algorithms used to give you points. I remember Tinder like algorithm got leaked, and it was like way back when it was like if you had X amount of swipes right, your profile was ranked in this position. Therefore, you are in this category.
Damn.
Hmm.
Um, but that's because I wonder after this reflection, Alana and I have kind of gone back and forth on this idea that dating apps are actually a horrible way to meet other people, although Alana has defended
I
them.
don't think they're horrible.
No, I said
I
Alana has defended them.
oh, okay.
Yeah. Um, I believe they're a horrible way to meet people. Jenna, what are your thoughts on, I mean, just based off that sentiment, do you think that that is a result of dating apps, or would you put that more towards like just the state of romance?
So here are my thoughts on dating apps. I think that you can't say that you hate dating apps because it's like saying you don't like you can't say anything bad about dating apps because it's like saying that you want to find an apartment in New York without getting street easy. It's like they're almost a necessary way to date in New York, I think. And I think if you're someone who wants to continually date and go on more dates, you have to use the dating apps. It's just the way that it sort of works. I will say it is a little bit like a needle in a haystack a lot of the time. It's like you might think that someone is cute or you have a little bit of cute banter and then you end up meeting them and it's like, what was that? And so
Hmm.
it's definitely not a surefire way to meet someone that you're going to go on into a relationship with. But I do think it is like a successful way to go on dates. And a successful way to meet people that are maybe outside of your normal circle of people. So, like I said, I went to a really small college. So, there's a lot of people from Hamilton in New York City, but it was sort of like after a year of going out with the same people again, it was like, I'm not meeting anyone at these parties. I'm not meeting anyone from my high school friends. It's like, I was like, I need a greater pool to sort of date in.
Yeah, very much agree. Alana's sneezing, bless you.
Thank you.
Um, Completely agree. Well, okay. Alana, unless you have anything to add to that, um,
No, I mean I
I know
agree with
some.
the needle in the haystack concept, and I'm not saying dating apps are easy, like by any means, but I don't think they're a horrible way to meet someone. I think they provide a service which is making our small world smaller,
Mm-hmm.
but it takes a lot for it to work out. But do dating apps give you opportunities to meet people you might not have otherwise? 100%. Do they allow you to get like have the opportunity to go on more dates? Yeah. Do they allow you to like I think there are a lot of pros and cons, but like it's very difficult. It's very difficult to actually meet someone, actually make it work. Even just getting from a match to a conversation out to a date, like, is sometimes so difficult. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, I do think they're hard, but I also think like I'm glad that they're around. I think the frustrating thing is what happens when like I have so many friends who went on one dating app date and that was it. They met their person and it's been years and years and years and years. And then there are other people like me where that did not happen. And it's like, okay, like this, like XYZ people went on one date and it worked. And I'm on like date 476. Like, what, it just gets to a point where I do think people start to kind of like lose hope and feel really like down on themselves because it's like, well, why isn't it working for me? Like, what's wrong with me? You know?
Totally agree with that.
Well, I know some people who are in need of our help, and they stem from our listener questions. Um, and actually, I guess just before we do get to our listener questions, because this is now spoiler territory. Well, you know what? I'm going to save that for after listener questions.
Okay.
Just everyone remind me that I have a spoiler question I want to ask you, Jenna. That
Oh,
way,
okay.
should they want to stop listening to the episode, they can stop for book
And I
spoilers.
have a final question that I thought of too. So we each have one little.
Hey, everybody. Jonah here to talk about my favorite CBD mindset product. It's Mindset Wellness CBD. It's the gummies. It's the rest gummies. It's the focus gummies. They're our awesome sponsor. Um, these things are part of my daily routine. I take the rest ones every night before bed. They taste amazing. They're good for you. They're organic. There's a 10% off code and free shipping when you use code Seen Other People if you want to try them. Now, I've actually had a lot of friends reach out to be like, hey, like, do they work, or can I come over and like grab one as a trial? And I'm like, first of all, they do work, and no, you can't come over, but you can go to mindsetwellnesscbd.com and you can use our code and you can get your own shipped to your house. But really cool founders, John and Renee, they did an episode with us a couple weeks ago. Go listen to that. This is great for anyone who has, like, we're Alana and I are both creatives. We need a ton of focus to do the thousands of different things that we're doing at all times. And the focus gummies really help. And then, of course, by the time 10 p.m. rolls around, you're exhausted, you're stressed. These things help take the stress away and help you fall asleep. I've been going to sleep at like 10 fucking p.m. I wake up at like 5. I love it. And I think it's really thanks to these gummies. So go ahead, use our code, Seen Other People. We appreciate them as a sponsor. We hope you guys enjoy the product. Now, back to the episode.
I met this guy recently that a close friend of mine and her boyfriend introduced me to at this social gathering. We got along really well and had fun talking to one another, and drinking was definitely involved. We ended up pretty much hooking up when the night ended, and I crashed over with him. He gave me his number, but hasn't really texted me since or replied to the last message I sent, which was me replying to the initial text he sent upon exchanging numbers. I know he's busy moving this week, and our mutual friend advised me to leave it alone because if anyone were to ask about us hooking up, she said that he'd just get freaked out right now and that me and him will definitely see each other again. My friend also reassured me that the guy does think I'm super cute. What do you guys think? Maybe he's not interested. Should I follow him on Instagram? I have to question that. Yeah, that's the question. Okay. They met, they hooked up that night, and they exchanged numbers. He texted her to give her his number. She responded and hasn't heard from him. So is he not interested? Was it just a hookup? Is there a chance that it'll continue? The friend that introduced them reassured her that he thinks she's cute. What do we think?
I think he should. Well, I'm curious you guys think also, but like, I think she should just text and be like, hey, do you want to get together sometime? I don't know why she would wait magically for him to look through his phone. And I'm assuming they were like a day party. Maybe they were drunk. We've gotten numbers from people, whether it's a business contact or romantic interest. And like, you look at your phone like a week later and you're like, wait, I met that person. And then you go and you text them. But like, yeah, I don't know. I think she should just be like, hey, do you want to get together? That's what every single episode has taught us, to the person listening, that you should just reach out. Otherwise, you're just going to think about it all the time. It's going to drive you crazy. Thoughts? Jenna, Jenna, you have some thoughts here. I'm seeing a little bit of a.
See, I'm stuck on this phrase that he would get freaked out. Why is he getting freaked out? I don't love that. I think if that didn't exist, I would be more on your team here, Jonah. I'm all about like, you get a couple chances to shoot your shot and put it out there, but I don't love that the friend specifically said that he would get freaked out. I wouldn't text him. I would just go on with your life, pursue other people. And if you run into him again, it seems like this is a mutual friend. Flirt, see what happens, take it from there.
Yeah, that line also kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Like, why it doesn't make sense why somebody would get freaked out. It's also like if anyone were to ask about us hooking up, like I don't that's definitely a bit confusing. But on the flip side of that, I do align with Jonah. I feel like just I know myself and I would be sitting there just like constantly wondering. And the best thing is like the only way to get an answer is to ask. So if you're like me, to the person who wrote this in, if you're like me and you're sitting there feeling that way, then just say like, hey, how's the move going? And then see what he responds, and then follow up with like, let me know if you want to grab a drink one day after you finish like getting your move stuff done to chill out a bit afterwards and see what happens. But if you're not like me and you can hold off, then yeah, like Jenna said, you'll see him again, you'll see him around. Like it could end up being a friend or something more. Who knows?
So she said, should I follow him on Instagram? No, you should. You should not follow him on Instagram. That's not the right thing to do. But I would, I don't know. I would, pending that strange line, I would reach out. But I also see that weird line. Anyway, we don't have enough information. But
the next one, we do have a lot of information.
We have a lot.
Alana,
is our intention to read this entire page, which is longer than Jenna's book?
Okay. What I'm gonna do there. Okay, so I'll read the intro and the outro, and then if we need more context, we can skim it. Jonah, if you want to send it into the chat while I read it, how about that?
Okay, and the question is pretty like universal. So
Yeah.
I think reading the intro and outro is fine.
Okay, so the basic question is, what do you do when you don't like your friend's significant other? And it has two parts. So what do you do when your friend's significant other has toxic behaviors and they don't see it? And what do you do when you simply don't like your friend's significant other? And how do you preserve the friendship through all of this? Who wants to take it away?
I'll go. It's definitely a question that we all have encountered in our life. And I think that the two different parts of the question are very important. So I feel like if you witness controlling behavior or weird toxic behavior in a friend's boyfriend, I would pull my friend aside in the moment that I felt like it was like actually happening and be like, hey, like Jim was, acting super controlling. Is like everything okay? What's going on? Like maybe ask some leading questions to try and get them to like open up a bit about it. But I wouldn't use like any blanket statements of like, I don't like Jim. I don't see this working out for you guys. You deserve better. I think things like that just make your friend resent you. And I think just coming at it always from a place of like love, worry, and that you're kind of like a team and that you're on you're on their page and you just like want the best for them always is the best way to do it. But if you just don't like them, I personally think there is so little that you can actually do. You only see the relationship in such a small way. A lot of times people act differently behind closed doors, and your friend sees something in that person that they love. So I think you have to go with it.
I think in terms of the second part of this about like if you just don't like them, what I would say is separate the relationship from the friendship. You don't have to be around unless it's like your roommate's significant other. You don't have to be around them all the time. Like I would prioritize making plans with your friend where their boyfriend or girlfriend isn't around. Because I think that is the best way to preserve the friendship is to not have the whole friendship focused on everything that's going on in the relationship. I 100% agree with Jenna about like pinpointing those specific moments that something's happening, to call them out rather than just saying like I don't like this person. And I think one thing that's really important to just keep in mind is that like yes, I think we've all seen our friends go through situations where they're in relationships and we see them not feeling like their best self, not being treated like their best self. We know that they're not getting what they deserve out of this other person, but they have like rose colored glasses on. They don't see that. And I've been that person where like I've been in a terrible relationship for almost a year where like I was depressed. I was so not okay. And I kept saying like my friends would all try and talk to me about it. And I just kept saying like, no, you don't know what it's like when it's just him and I. And it's I think the best thing to do in that situation, because ultimately like eventually it's going to come to an end, is just to continuously be there for them when that does happen, and don't be like I told you so. Just be like I'm
Mhm.
here for you. I know. I can't imagine how you feel, and you deserve so much more, and you'll find someone who's going to give you everything and more that you deserve.
Yeah, my advice is if it's more from the perspective of the person who is in the relationship, it's if your friends and your family have expressed to you that they don't like the person you're with, then they are right and you are wrong. And that's just the truth that you're in some sort of fantasy world. You're
Yep.
convincing yourself otherwise. You need both those votes. You need the vote of the family and the friends, pending your relationship with your family and whoever represents your family. But I need to say this again in bold: they are right. You are wrong. Even if you think you're not wrong, you are wrong. That's my hot take. Welcome to the show. Okay. Jenna, before we get into spoiler territory, where can
Yeah.
people buy your book?
So it is on Amazon. It is at basically anywhere that books are sold. So your
Love
local
that.
bookstore, anywhere that books are sold, you can get Me in Search of You. Woo!
Love it.
Me in Search of You, Jenna
Me in
Langbaum.
search of you, or backwards, you in search of me.
It's a
So
very
Maybe that'll be
very
the next
pretty
one.
Instagrammable book cover.
Very IGable.
Thank you.
Okay, here's my spoiler question, because I like just preface dyslexia, special reading groups all my life. I have comprehension issues, clearly. But
Okay.
can you explain to me? I love the July 15th story, and I love the way you sort of interwove that into the third act of the piece. And I went
Yeah.
back and read the first pitch. So, did it work out with July 15th guy that like you were on that third date? Like, are you in a relationship? Did it work out? Like, where are we at?
So the cab driver was correct. I was in a relationship. I wasn't in a relationship by July 15th. And I
Wow.
dated him for a year. And I actually met him on a dating app, going back to our original point that we can't meet people on dating apps. I met him on Bumble. But we broke up during COVID. So I am single now. And yeah, it sort of came true. And that's why I think, I mean, I was still dating him when I finished the book and it was on its way to getting published and everything. But I didn't want the ending to be like, and now I have a boyfriend. Woo! Like it still was like a little tenuous, as I was finishing the book, in terms of like, I think we were like kind of dating, but not boyfriend and girlfriend. So that's the way that I wanted to finish it. So yes, the cab driver was correct.
And is the red balloon your heart?
Oh, in the CVS parking lot? Yes.
The one that's like the tiny red balloon in my rib cage breathes this new air and pops.
Oh, yes, yes. So the whole thing with that one is so the first essay is called We Popped and the last one is called We Popped. And in the
Yeah.
first one, it's all about like pop like a break, like an explosion. And in the last one, it's supposed to be like pop, like we are, like popping champagne or like popping off, like we're beginning. So I really wanted to be like we broke and then we began, kind of. That's why I did these sort of parallel
I love that because
titles.
also
But yeah,
I
that's my
like
heart.
to think it's hard to think about it this way in the moment, but any breakup or end of a relationship is the start of some like a new chapter in your life. And I think that's a
Yeah,
really like it's scary but beautiful thing.
thank you. Yes, I
Very
agree.
cool.
Yeah.
I like that mirroring work there. That's great. Well, okay, I was super curious about that. I'm glad we got the answer from the author herself. That's very exciting.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
okay, great. Well, we really appreciate you coming on and talking about this book. Everyone should go buy it and go read it. It'll make you nostalgic and it will make you excited to go out there and go on a few dates. And it's certainly inspiring to any creative to be able to articulate your romantic journey. And we look forward to the sequel. Obviously, there's more stories to be told from you. So I hope you're like already gotten the sequel version of this book, inner working now that, new stories, new relationships, new
I need
dates.
some new material, Jonah. I was just
Okay.
living in Florida for 3 months in a retirement community, so I don't have a lot of stories right now, but I got to get back out there. I'm back in New
Really?
York,
That
so I
wasn't
got
the
to get
most
back.
like buzzing, like, active dating community? No
Well,
way.
I had some really amazing conversations with married couples, like older single people. I don't know, that might get integrated somehow into the next one. But yeah, I've got to get back out there because I need some new material. So here we go.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, to your journey, to all of our journeys, Jenna, you can stay on after we wrap it, but I'll just like wrap us out in these 5 seconds. Thank you everyone for listening. We will see you guys next Tuesday on Seeing Other People.